As the sun sets in Greenville, Ohio, Henry Graves cashes out the register at Smith & Son's hardware store on Main Street, wondering how he got here. It was a lifetime ago when the Twin Towers fell, sending another generation of Graves men into battle. Multiple deployments to Afghanistan and later Iraq exposed Henry to carnage that no man should ever see. Images now eternally seared into his memory. But with a family at home, his natural instinct to just get on with it took over, and Henry found a way to make the best of his circumstances. So every day, he gets up in the morning, goes off to work for minimum wage. And every evening, he returns home, kisses his wife and son, and sorts through a bottomless stack of bills that need to be paid.
Well, we're in a free fall out here in agriculture. We've seen 30% decrease in prices of soybeans, and with the geopolitical turmoil that the president has thrown into the mix over the last year, the markets just don't have anywhere to go, so they're just sitting and hiding.
At that moment, the monotony of Henry's daily routine would take an unexpected turn. The story of the farmer in economic peril struck a chord with Henry, and he wanted to know more. Expecting to read a profile about the plight of this farmer, Henry is instead introduced to something called the Boogaloo.
Oza, you've been off the street too long, blood. Gotten lazy. You lost your edge.
You're the loser, punk.
The code Boogaloo, he learns, is a reference to the movie Break-In 2, Electric Boogaloo, which was widely panned for being a near exact copy of the first Break-In movie. The term was adopted by anti-government extremists as a call to a second civil war. Though it started as an internet joke among teenagers, it was rapidly adopted by anti-government and apocalyptic far-right groups who latched on to the term as a metaphor for a violent uprising against the state, political opponents, and law enforcement. Like a perverse game of telephone, the word Boogaloo morphed online into phrases like Big Igloo and Big Luau. The latter term celebrated because luau's include a pig roast, a not-so-subtle reference to killing cops.
Are Hawaiian shirts the new symbol of hate?
Beginning in January of 2020, amid rapidly spreading disinformation about gun control and threats to the Second Amendment, the Boogaloo Boys were spurred to action.
The governor wanted to use the National Guard basically to go and collect weapons.
Misinformation about gun control was circulating wildly, including rumors that the National Guard was going to go door to door to confiscate weapons, that the Virginia governor was planning to cut electricity, internet, and phones in order to force gun owners' hands, and that new laws were actually going to take weapons from ordinary citizens. All of this reinforced Boogaloo Group's sense of imminent threat and the call to start a second civil war. They began showing up at state capitol protests wearing Hawaiian shirts as though they were on their way to a luau, but with AK-47s and rocket launchers slung over their shoulders. Images began circulating widely in the news, in memes, and in pamphlets. The pro-Second Amendment messaging in the Boogaloo groups appeals to Henry, but he also enjoys the fun nature of the group and the camaraderie that develops from bonding with like-minded people standing up for what they all view as a noble and righteous cause. In many ways, it reminds him of the deep bonds that he formed with his fellow Marines. Along with sense of brotherhood, the memes and coded speech made him feel empowered. After all, he is an insider who has a secret that others just don't or won't understand. Henry realizes that their way of life will be destroyed if American patriots do nothing. He remembers his father and grandfather who fought for those freedoms. He thinks of the farmer who lost everything to big bankers and the politicians who did nothing to help. And he thinks about his son and what kind of country will be left for him. He feels ready to make whatever sacrifices are necessary to ensure a future for the next generations. And he is certain that the ashes of chaos will birth a better, freer, and truer America. Day after day, Henry spends more time on the Boogaloo sites and chat rooms. He begins buying gear online, visits patriotic firearms sites, and purchases a bright pink Hawaiian shirt. 2 months later, COVID-19 breaks out, and ammunition for personal protection becomes scarce. Henry starts reading online that there will be riots, and people should be prepared to protect their families. Boogaloo groups are proliferating rapidly on Facebook, and now have tens of thousands of members. Henry is grateful for the community in these uncertain times. Feels like he is part of something really big. Then, because of the shutdowns, Henry is laid off again, and his wife is unable to return to work until lockdowns are lifted. He increasingly spends time online in a bubble, where he encounters widespread disinformation and misinformation about the virus and shelter-in-place orders. He reads that local and state governments are planning to shut down public transportation and roads, and that the federal government will impose martial law and implement a national quarantine. He sees photographs circulating that show army tanks showing up in cities and military supply trucks on highways, which people say are in preparation for military rule. The same kind of mobilization around resistance against state infringements of Second Amendment rights have now shifted to new perceived threats from the state through shutdowns and shelter-in-place orders in the wake of COVID-19. Boogaloo groups, who feel their freedoms are being restricted, are worried that they're losing control over their country. Henry knows this is the time to take action. At the protest, there is a scuffle with counter-protesters, and a gun goes off. Henry panics amidst the chaos, firing off multiple rounds, hitting 3 people. The next morning, Henry rises early to catch a ride with some Boogaloo friends heading to a shutdown protest at the state capitol in Columbus. At the protest, there is a scuffle with counter-protesters, and one of Henry's friends is shot by friendly fire when a man's gun goes off. Chaos ensues. Some in the group turn on others, saying, "This is what you signed up for. This is the Boogaloo. Traitors get the rope, and we will spill the blood of tyrants. Those redcoats got what they deserved." This was a wake-up call for Henry, who begins to dig deeper into the narratives he's been consuming for months. During his research, Henry stumbles across a fact-checking website set up to debunk misinformation on gun control. He learns that the National Guard was never planning to go door-to-door, and that the Virginia governor never said he would suspend internet, electricity, or phone service. That site is linked to another fact-checking site about the coronavirus. He reads that the federal government has said there are no plans for a national quarantine, and that a lot of images that have circulated of tanks and military trucks on highways and in cities were actually from military exercises years ago or are part of regular supply deliveries. He starts to doubt the truth of the claims the Boogaloo boys have been circulating. Henry has to make a decision, and he decides to walk away. He posts his frustrations in a Boogaloo Facebook chat and is attacked. Others online berate him with taunts, calling him a Fed and a traitor.
Oh, beautiful for space.